Hi, welcome to some ideas using 2.5-inch strips. We're doing a total of 20 projects and we are up to project idea number 16. So we've been having a huge amount of fun. Today we're going to be having a look at how to make one of these little, I'm calling it a phone pocket, because it's just the right size for me to carry as a little pocket when I'm out and about with just my phone. And it has got a hidden inside pocket, I'm not sure if you can see in there, which of course separates the phone from the other essential item that you can carry around with you, which would of course be a little bar of chocolate. So this is my phone chocolate pocket. So I just thought I'd show you, we've got some strips on the back, strips on the front, strips inside, and then we've got this cord on it as well. So I'll just go ahead and show you how we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'll hang it up here while I'm doing all that. And so we're going to pop a zip in. So I have already done some of the preparation. So inside there's a pocket that separates the space. So I've gone ahead, it's the pattern I should mention, if you've already signed up to receive a pattern from GourmetQuilter.com, you'll have instructions that tell you how to do all the cutting and everything like that. I'm just here to show you. So inside for the pocket, it was 3 strips which I've joined together. I've pressed the seams open so we have a nice flat fold. I folded it in half and done a line of top stitching. And now we can set that aside. I didn't think you needed to see me doing all these little straight lines. For the front, similarly, I've joined 3 strips together and I've pressed my seams open. And that I'm just laying with a piece of just a thin batting. I'm using a cotton batting again. And I'm just layering that with that at the moment and setting that to one side. The top is there set to one side, also with a piece of batting and some lining for both of those two. And then this is for the back. Now I've done this one in different colours. I've got red on the front and I've got this orange on the back. This one I'm doing in the same colours. I've got a black and white thing going on here. Well, almost. The pocket got a little bit carried away and the zipper, but almost black and white. So I've gone ahead and I've joined my 3 strips for the back. I pressed the seams open and then I've layered that with the batting and the lining, and I've just done a couple of lines of quilting. So I've just gone either side of the seam line about 1/4 of an inch or so. And so I can set that aside now. So we don't need any of that for the moment. Now we need to work on the zip. Now we've done this on one of the previous projects. We've, I think on the pencil case, we did a zipper like this where we're shortening the zipper length, so we don't need a very long zip to start with. It can be longer because we're cutting it shorter. It doesn't need to be longer. So I've already gone ahead and done the one end. So what we had to do was open the zipper, sew the zipper together just by stitching across it, and then I've placed 2 pieces of fabric one either side and stitched across, and then I folded them back and I've stitched. So I'm actually about to do the same thing on the other end, so that I'm showing you the other end. So you have to make sure that the zipper pull is inside when you do that open end. So on this end here, I've got my 2 little pieces ready to go. I'm going to just line these up. I've actually made a mark on the zipper for the measurement that I'm looking for where the edge of my fabric goes. So I'm going to sandwich basically the zip between the 2 pieces of fabric. I'm hopefully going to get them sitting nice and straight, and they're right against that mark that I made, so I get the length correct. And now I just need to go and do my 1/4 inch seam straight across the zipper. So I'll go ahead and do that so that you can just see what I'm doing. So I'm starting from out here. This is wider than it needs to be, but it's better that we have it wider to work with. It's much easier. And I'm going to go all the way along. I'm going to turn around and go all the way back again. That's so that I get extra strength right over those zipper teeth. So if you just go slowly, you can go straight over the zipper teeth. So that's looking pretty good now. And I can just fold that back with both pieces. Make sure that's sitting out nice and flat. I could go and press it, but I don't think I really need to at this stage. And now I'm just going to stitch across there 1/8 of an inch onto the fabric or thereabouts. And so that's even another row of stitching across that zipper, so it's quite secure now. So that's all looking pretty good, and I can now cut away all this excess zipper. We don't need it. I'm just cutting it level with that fabric. It's well and truly secured. I can do both ends with that now, and we don't want the bulk sitting in there, so that's really good that that's all done. So now I've got my piece here. Now this is going to be too long. It needs to measure the same as the front, so the top part and the lower part. So we just need to trim it. So I'm going to suggest trimming it evenly each side. So it's about 1/2 inch off, I think, on both sides, so that the zip sits central to the front. So you can always just check with this sort of thing. It's not always easy to cut things when you've got zipper pulls in the way. However, we're going to give it a go. So I'm just going to take off about 1/2 inch, and I think it's about right. Now I'll just double check before I cut the next one. That looks about right there as well. So I'll just move that zipper pull out of my way a little bit. And I can cut this one. So that's looking pretty good. So once we've got that ready, we can have that ready. You need to decide which way you want your zipper to open. Mine opens so that the pull is on the left as you look at it. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And we're going to stitch that zipper in, so we can do it either way first. It doesn't really matter which one goes on first. We've got to do the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my sewing machine ready with the zipper foot, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how that all goes in. It's really very straightforward, so it's not hard at all, in fact. So I've gone ahead, I've put my zipper foot on, and I've positioned the zip. So this is my front. I've got the zip right sides to the front. Because we trimmed the ends, it's the right length. So I've got the edge of the zipper level with the raw edges of the front. And then I've got the lining piece here as well. So we've got the lining right sides together with the front, because it's going to flip over once we've sewn that in, and it'll be nice and enclosing on that edge of that zipper. So I'm just going to come along here now and stitch. My zipper foot, of course, doesn't have a 1/4 inch marker, but I can gauge something close to it. So I'm just going to stitch across. So I've just popped a couple of pins in just to hold it. And we just need to make sure, so I have opened the zipper so that the zipper pulls out of the way for the moment. When I get up closer, I will need to move the zipper pull so I can go past it. Just make sure all those edges stay together. They're looking pretty good. So I'm pretty close to that zipper pull now, and it's just going to be in my way. So I'm just going to lift the foot, and I'm going to close it up so that it's back where I've already sewn now. And then I can continue on without it getting in my way again to the end. So these little bits that we put on the zipper are just sticking out. We'll trim them off shortly. So then we've got the zipper already in. I'm just going to give that a quick press while we can. So just pressing the lining away from the zipper at the moment. And then I'm going to flip that over and make sure that it's tugged down. We just have to keep tugging, because I'm using a cotton batting, which is really good for this sort of project, but it grabs everything all the time. So you've got to make sure that it's not hanging in there with something. And then I'm just pressing the front as well. So that zipper should all sit quite nicely there now. So that's looking pretty good. And now we need to put the top piece on. So the top piece is a strip, which is also a little bit wide. We're going to be trimming that shortly. So that exactly the same technique, we're going to put that zipper right sides together with the top section, line up those raw edges, and put the lining piece on here so that it's right side down, so that it'll flip over to the right way as well. So I'll just go ahead now and I'll just stitch that second seam. So just come along, move the zipper pull out of the way, and then go the rest of the way. So exactly the same as I've just done. I will go ahead and do that and show you when I've finished. So I've gone ahead, I've done that seam. So on the inside, everything is really tidy. It's all nicely lined, everything's out of the way. So I'm just going to trim off these little extra bits that we had sewn onto the zipper. They're just sticking out and causing extra congestion, which we don't need. And I'll do the same inside here as well. And then we just need to do a little bit of top stitching and just a little bit of quilting, I think, as well, so that everything holds together really nicely. So if you've got it all nicely pressed, everything should be sitting really well. So I'm just going to come along and do 1/4 of an inch above the zipper, 1/4 of an inch the other side of the zipper, and then I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch either side of those two front seams there, so that everything is all nicely stitched and held together. So I'll go ahead and do that and come back and show you how we're going to put it all together. So I've gone ahead, I've done some top stitching either side of the zipper, 1/4 of an inch away, and then I've just done some lines of stitching down either side of the two seam lines, just to give everything a nice little firm feel. We need to trim this to the right length now, because it's a bit long. It needs to be the same as our back. So I'll go ahead and just trim that. It's all coming together really well. And then I'll show you how we're going to do this, the cord. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do this one just slightly differently to the one I've already made, although the construction is the same. I've put two little loops up here so that we can hang a cord through them. This one I'm going to do also with the two loops, but I'm going to pop D-rings in so that we can put our cord on with some little hooks and things. So it's just that we have to remember to put the D-rings in is really the only difference at this stage. So to make these little loops, I've already gone ahead and made them, but I just had a strip of fabric and I've just folded the raw edges into the middle, and then I've just done 2 lines of sewing. So I've put them into the middle and folded it over and pressed it like that, and then I've just done the 2 lines of stitching either side. So we've got a longer length because we're going to cut them off for that, and we also need to cut some bits off to do these little tab things here as well. So because I've already done it, I don't need to do that bit now. So I've cut them to the length that I want them. I've got my D-rings ready, so I just pop those on the loops, and so then we can just position those onto the top of the either the front or the back, it doesn't particularly matter. And we're going to stitch them in as we sew the seam, or you could sew them on now if you wanted to, so that they're in place. It makes some sense to stitch them on now, so maybe I'll actually do that, I think. So it's just a little holding stitch, so not quite on the 1/4 inch and the 1/8 sort of range, so that it doesn't show later. So they just sit in from the outside edge a little bit. So then they're going to flip up like that at the top of the little bag. So now we want to put that right sides together with the backing, but we've also got the little pocket to go in there as well. So the pocket simply just creates a divider within there, so it's like that and it's like that. And so we just now need to stitch all the way round, just with our 1/4 inch seam allowance, right sides together, and the pocket on top. The pocket could sit either top of the back or the front, it doesn't matter because it's just in the middle. So I'll go ahead and I'll stitch my 1/4 inch all the way around, and then I will show you the next bit. And one thing I should mention before I get too carried away with my sewing is you do need to leave the zipper open so that you've got something to turn it through, because we're sewing all the way around the outside edge. So I thought I'd probably better mention that so that we didn't get too carried away. The other thing I should mention, as I'm coming across this top edge, I can feel where the little loops are with the D-rings in them. And I'm just suggesting that you do a little back stitch over the sides of those, just to make it extra strong, because that's going to be carrying the weight of whatever it is, that heavy chocolate in the phone or whatever, in your little pocket. So I just thought to mention that when I got to it, otherwise I will keep sewing. So I've gone all the way around, as I said I would. I have my zipper open so I can turn it. I've backstitched over where the little loops are that are going to take the cord. Now what I'd like to do, because we're going to turn it out the right way shortly, and we're going to top stitch around the side. So on this one I've done that, and that it encases all the raw edges of the seam. But for it to work nicely, it's best if we trim this seam down a little bit. So I'm just going to trim it all just a little bit less than it is now, so that it's all tidy and smaller than 1/4 of an inch that way. It's a little bit bulky where that zipper is. So I'm just going to do that on all 4 sides. Because it just makes everything really nice and tidy. There's no raw edges anywhere in this little pocket. Must be a little bit thick where those little loops are. And the other thing is just to clip off, they're not very big, but just those little tiny corners. Don't cut your stitching, just to get rid of any excess bulk, because we've got batting and everything in there. It's quite bulky, so we want those corners to come out as well as possible, so we've got to give it every opportunity. So because my zipper is open, I can turn it out the right way. If your zipper is not open, trust me, you cannot turn it out the right way. It's a great little pouch. I love things like this when I'm going walking, when I'm out and about, even going shopping. I can put my phone and my payment cards or whatever it is that I need with me when I'm out and about in something like this, without having to take a great big something every time I go anywhere. So it's a good idea to have a little something to turn or help push those corners out. My trusty pencil does a good job for me. They're still going to be just slightly rounded because there is a bulk with all that batting, but in general we can get a pretty good result by doing it this way. And then we just need to give it a good press and do a top stitch all the way round the edge, about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, and that will then encase all those raw edges inside, so that we don't have to have anything anywhere we don't want it, really. That's looking pretty good. I do find it's easier if I press it before I try and stitch it, because of the bulk. So I'm just going to try and bring that seam out as straight as I can get it. Just move your zipper pull away if you need to, so that you can iron that seam there. And just work it round, all the way round, till you've got some nice straight edges. And across the top, keep those D-rings as best you can out of the way if you're putting D-rings on. Without the D-rings, of course, there's just little loops up there if you didn't want to put the D-rings on. That's looking pretty good. So now I just need to go around 1/4 of an inch all the way around and top stitch that. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll just show you how we can attach the cord, whether it be with the little hooks or whether it's the way I've done the other one. So I'm just going to top stitch first though. So I need to now, I've done my top stitching, it's looking pretty good. And inside everything is looking nice, it's all tidy on the seams there because we've enclosed all the raw edges with that stitching. Further inside is a divider pocket. I'm not sure if you can see right in there, but there is one in there. And it just means that if you've got something in there, perhaps like a phone, that there's another little space if you wanted to put something else like the bar of chocolate or something like that in there, and it just keeps things separated a little bit. You wouldn't have to have it in there, but I thought it was quite handy. So because I'm using the D-rings on this one, I need to make the cord for that as well, but I'm doing exactly the same thing as I've done on here with just the cord. So this is not adjustable. You may want to check your length before you go ahead and put your cord in. I have suggested a length in the pattern, but it's a very flexible thing because we're all different shapes and sizes. My idea was that it would go over, cross over one shoulder like that, and for me I quite like something down there. Some people like it further up here. Some people are not as tall as me. Some people are even taller than me. So length changes a lot. Some people are wider than others, and that takes up length of cord. So there's lots of variables with cord. However, we'll go ahead with how to attach it. So on this one here, it's going to be just the same technique, only that I've added in so that you'll need even less cord on this one because we've got extra length going with the D-ring and the hook. So I've just got a little clasp there, and then I'm just going to put this little sort of fastening on. So to make that little, it's a little bit like the cord ends that we've been doing on other things, but this one has to be more like a little tube. So I'm just going to stitch, I've got my length here, it's all got the stitching on when we made the little loops, it's the same piece from that. And I just need to do a little stitch and then turn it out the right way as a little tube. So it's a little bit tight, but it just, if you make it any bigger, of course, it is getting too big. So I'm just stitching it across, and then because it's a little bit tight for turning out the right way, I just thought if I trim off the corners and trim that seam back to about 1/8 of an inch, because it really doesn't have any sort of stress on it, it just needs to be held together. And then it is just manageable to turn that in the right way if you've got your trusty pencil or tool to help push that through. Of course it's going to be difficult because I'm here showing you. It is being difficult today. But I know it goes. I've already done one. So if we can just get that to come through nicely, and because we just trimmed those little corners off, they won't cause us any problems. So there it is, it's turned into a nice little tube now. So what we want to do is thread that onto our piece of cord before we thread it through the D-ring. So it needs to already be on there. So this is how I did this one. Oops, no, it's not going on the D-ring at all. It's going on the hook. So if it was on this one, it would need to be on before you go through the loop on the bag. On this one, we are actually putting it on the hook. So now the trickiest part now is to make it about the same length so that these little bits look right as the one we've just done. So I think it's going to be okay if we put it. So what's going to happen is we're going to stitch it onto this piece of cord only coming out of the top, and then so we're going to stitch across here, and then we're going to bring this piece up and tuck it into there and then stitch across both of them there. So what we need to do is make sure that they're sitting in about the right place, and it's just a bit long. So this is probably the hardest bit of the whole pocket, really, is getting this little bit of cord right. That's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to stitch that piece on there now. It can come out of the hook for the moment, and I'm just going to stitch across there just with the single cord coming out the top. I'm sure there's other ways of doing this, but I just thought this was quite nice to do it this way. So I'm just doing a couple of back stitches there. Trim off all those little bits of thread that seem to collect every time we do anything. And now I'm going to put it back through the hook, and now through this, in this lower end here, I can push that in and just push it in as far as it'll go, and then we just stitch across the two there. So nothing really hard, it just is a little bit fiddly, and it's more making sure it's the right length than anything. If you just take it slowly, the machine will do it. If you need to, you can turn it around. I suggest going over it a couple of times. And there we have our cord all ready to go on our external pocket. No chocolate though, but I can put a phone in it. So that just clasps onto there, and I think that's great. I use these sorts of things a whole lot. I've got my phone here. I can show you how it actually works. This phone sits in here, and it can go in either side in that pocket in there, and it zips in quite nicely. I have quite a large phone, so other phones will fit in very easily. You may have other uses. It may not be a phone pocket for you at all. It might be something quite different. However, whatever it is, I thought it would be useful and fun to make. So here we've got our little external pocket on a string, and with a nice zipper. By doing those little ends on the zipper, we've got that nice little bit at the end there. It's nice and tidy. They're easy to put in like that. So that was it for idea number 16, and I will see you again with idea number 17.